should we do a burn down sale this fall? Well, I always like to say too, I don't have a crystal ball. It's more of a magic 8 ball from the 90s. Okay. We like look at it. We're like, oh, here's what it says. Like, here's what it says. Okay. So Bob.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's the
Yes.
answer.
Okay. Bob. So tell us from your perspective, oh, wise one, what do you think is going to happen in 2024?
Well, the world's going to continue to move on.
Sure.
So it's not going to collapse. I mean, I think we're going to go into some a little bit tougher economic times just from everything that I'm seeing out there. We've already actually are in it now. So I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anybody. I think I kind of thought 2023 was going to be our cleansing year from COVID, and it's still not. Manufacturers are still struggling a little bit. Especially engine manufacturers and things like that. So I do think 2024 now is going to be our cleansing year. We have a lot of our dealers that really are disappointed they didn't have a lot of growth this year. But if you go back and say, well, gosh, how's your last 3 years been? And maybe you didn't grow over 2022, but 2022 was a phenomenal year. So I think, again, it's resetting expectations a little bit. I do believe, and I'm really telling all of our dealers, we got to go back and look at kind of what our growth numbers were in 2018 and 2019 pre-COVID. And I think you're going to see that again. Interest rates are going up, so it's going to be a little harder to sell things, with payments and those types of things like that. But I'm optimistic about 2024. Again, I think, and we always say in our office here, good habits are formed in hard times and bad habits are formed in good times. And I think a lot of bad habits were formed during COVID in terms of way over ordering things because you were encouraged to do that by manufacturers because you didn't want to lose your place in line. And all of a sudden in 2023, manufacturers are catching up and demand's going down a little bit. And I don't think I have a dealer out there that doesn't have or didn't have more inventory need. It wasn't necessarily the right inventory, but they had inventory there. So I'm optimistic about 2024. I think manufacturers are kind of getting themselves reset correctly. Again, and I tell people they're doing the best they can. You can't, if there's a supply chain issue, the manufacturer can't just, it's like with engines. I was talking to a person the other day and they said, well, why don't they just find and outsource it someplace else? And I go, well, an engine's a pretty vital component to any piece of equipment, and if I can't get sleeves from an engine from where I was getting them for, I'm not going to outsource them because all I'm going to have is a billion warranty claims to do. So I tell people it's different on some things, but when you get into the real heart of the units, engines and transmissions and transaxles and things like this, you're not going to outsource that stuff. There's too many warranty opportunities there. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that I bring a different perspective because I spend a lot of my time working with manufacturers. And so when I think about what's happening in 2024, I think the things that we have to be most aware of as we're going into this year is even if we do have the economy start to slow down, it means that what we're going to be selling more of is maybe not the whole goods units, but our parts and our service departments. And so when we think about the strategy for going into 2024, I still think whole goods is going to be this push. I still think your manufacturers are going to be putting some pretty incredible programs together because just like you, they over ordered in many of the situations. So you're still going to have some pretty great programs where manufacturers are buying down rates and like you're going to have some of these complexities. But I think the focus that you have to focus on is saying, is my parts and service department set up to take care of customers? Because when people can't replace what they've already bought, what they do is they repair it. And so we have a few different interesting factors going into this because when we look at the life cycle of units that people buy, we typically see that the life cycle where they start consuming parts is about year 3 for most units, where they really start this heavy consumption of parts. So if we started selling really heavy in 2020 and 2021, that would tell us that the parts consumption is going to start going up at end of 2023, beginning of 2024. So we've got this piece of the puzzle that says parts consumption is starting to rise because of the age of the units in the field. And then we take on and say, we've got this uncertain economy that's happening where people may be more apt to repair instead of replace. And so we've got parts consumption and service consumption happening there. And so I think when I look at 2024, I think, again, your manufacturers are going to push through some pretty great programs because just like you, they've over ordered at the beginning of all of this too. But if I were in your shoes and I was asking myself, how do I best set myself up for a successful 2024? Man, it comes back to making sure your parts inventory is where it needs to be, as well as your service department is fine-tuned, because I see a massive increase in parts and service happening in this next year. The second part of this question is, should we do a burn down sale this fall? If you haven't already done a burn down
Yeah,
sale, you've
yeah.
probably missed the opportunity
yeah.
at this point. I will say that again, we want to move the units that are taking up our floor plan right now. If we have our categories, when we start thinking about doing a burn down sale, there are three things that we say now is the time to do a burn down sale. Number one is your terms are coming due on your inventory. So if you're starting to have to pay interest on it, we want to move those units. Number two, you have more than what you need on your lot. And number three, you can get more from your manufacturer. So if you have those three things happen, yes, let's blow out your inventory and move it through. But again, depending on your seasonality and what industry you're in, for many of the industries we worked in, you want to start thinking about doing a blowout sale in June, not October. But that's when you would want to think about doing a blowout sale.
And I agree. And I think one of the things, again, because we are adamant about holding margins. So we are desperate. And I know as Jeff Blackton, who's one of our senior advisors, we work with our dealers and our dealer success group. You know, the thing we tell people again is what you said is I can get more inventory.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's and whether the manufacturer has not, another dealer has it, I can probably get it transferred to me. So the other piece is, again, I would rather make $1 of profit than pay $1 of interest.
No question.
And I know that's hard for some people to say, well, you know, if I sell it at cost, what have I done? Well, you haven't had to pay any interest on it, and I can get more of it. And I think that's the thing that you really got to look at is, you know, where am I at here? Because I had one dealer that doesn't work with us, but reached out for some help. And he had just made an $80,000 interest payment on equipment. This was back in April. And I'm sitting here going like, you've got to blow this stuff out. You got to get rid of this stuff. And he goes like, because he had like 600 units. And he says, well, no, you know, I'm going to have to sell them at cost or below cost. And I go, well, you just spent $80,000 of net profit. Okay. So what do we have to do here? And I think it's getting your kind of mind clear there a little bit also. And I would also encourage you, if you're looking at doing a sale and you want to do something that's kind of fun, there's a company, it's called Sale, S-A-L-E in a box, S-A-L-E in a box. Go to their website. They work with automotive dealers, and you can buy all these kind of blowout packages and things like this with the banners and things like this. So if you're going to do something, you know, really pick it up and do it well. So I would encourage you to take a look at that too.